Welcome to Behind the Headlines. This is Sue Dremann speaking. I'm a staff writer for Palo Alto Weekly, and I'm sitting in today for vacationing editor Jocelyn Dong. I'm here with Weekly Arts and Entertainment editor Elizabeth Schwyzer, and we're going to be talking about the Fall Arts Preview and talk a little bit about what's on tap for this fall in the arts world. Elizabeth, can you tell us a little bit about what some of the highlights are?
I sure can. It's looking like a really interesting season to me, lining up for this fall in the arts, kind of across genres. And we've spoken in the past about how there's a bit of a theme that we're seeing emerging, not just of ways to go out and have relief and distraction at the end of your work week, but also to get engaged with issues including what it means to be community and what's happening both in our community and in communities around the country and beyond.
It does seem like there is this theme of community. There are a number of exhibits that have to do with local artists. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so let's talk about Front Yard Back Street. Okay. It opens next weekend at the Palo Alto Arts Center. It's a group show, so there are more than 10 artists represented. And we've written in the past at the Weekly about one artist in particular who I find really interesting, Joel Daniel Phillips. He's a young guy based in Oakland who spent a lot of time in the Buena Vista Mobile Home Park, getting to know those residents. And of course, elsewhere in our paper, we cover the headline news of what's happening in that community.
Right.
And that's such a big story about how a community can make space for those who don't have the same resources and whether Mobile Home Park belongs here, what funding it takes to make that happen. But Joel was not interested in the headline news. He was interested in developing much more intimate relationships with the residents and then creating art from those experiences. And so he's got charcoal and graphite portraits, very, very detailed, of a number of the residents and their mobile homes, and that's part of this exhibition.
And when you saw a preview of this exhibition, can you tell me a little bit, what was the impact that it made on you?
Well, first I met with the artist and watched him working in the studio and got to know him and understand his approach to this work, which was really moving. And then I wanted to get a sense of some of the subjects as well. And so one of the privileges of working behind the scenes as a reporter is that I was invited then to go walk around the mobile home park. I met with one of the residents. She let me into her home. I met her cat. And so for me, what had been a headline story written by other writers here that I worked on proofing on a weekly basis maybe for our readers became a personal story about a woman who's now invited me to the end of the year posada that they hold every year at the mobile home park. And So even for me as a consumer of news, my attitude about the community has shifted because these are people I know a little bit instead of just statistics or, some unseen part of my community. Now I have more of a relationship, so that was a gift.
And now there's another aspect that I found intriguing about this particular exhibit, and that's that there's an artist who's put together a happiness map of Palo Alto.
That's been a really interesting and somewhat controversial aspect of this show. So Kate Pokrass, also based in Oakland, came to Palo Alto, thought about what she might do. She's done a lot of looking at travel, how people engage with the landscape and the neighborhoods they live in. She's done some very interesting projects in the past, inviting people to call a phone number and get instructions for kind of a city treasure hunt, that kind of thing. So this time, she decided to send a survey out to a number of Palo Alto residents and see who gave feedback on what are your happy places? Where do you go in the city that brings you joy or relief or makes you happy? And from all of that data, I can't now remember, but she got hundreds of responses. Mm-hmm. She pulled the data together and worked on creating a work of art that would be distributable. So there will be copies of this map. They'll be free with some city funding. This has been made available and through the Palo Alto Arts Center's support. And you can take this map, and I don't know yet whether it will be very literal, that you can follow directions to go to other people's happy places, or whether it will be more of an abstract sense of where the hot spots of happiness are in Palo Alto. But speaking to her, I got an interesting sense of the variety from people who love open spaces and parks, and that's what brings them joy, to some people who really love attending city council meetings because they feel engaged and hooked in, right? I think they're probably maybe more the minority, people who love that, or certain grocery stores where people feel really welcomed and like there's a personal touch that changes their feeling about their community. So again, that's a way of using art that's directly rooted back to how do we engage with Palo Alto.
Now we also have, going from local to national, we have a stellar playwright coming into town, Anna DeVere Smith as well. So can you tell me a little bit about what she will be talking about? Where is she going to be presenting?
Yeah, so Anna DeVere Smith has been making really remarkable, mostly solo shows that she writes and then self-directs and performs since probably the mid-'80s, and she often focuses on issues of race, class and race. And so she's coming to Stanford Live 4 times in October with 3 solo shows that go all the way back to an earlier show, Twilight Los Angeles 1992, which she wrote following the Rodney King beatings in Los Angeles and the subsequent riots. And she interviewed people ranging from the chief of the LAPD to some of the people who instigated those riots, and created this show where she represents these many aspects of that community going through the crisis. So she's doing that show here. She's also bringing a kind of a recitation of one of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous letter from a Birmingham jail. That's kind of a defensive, nonviolent approach to conflict. And then this new show is the Pipeline Project, where she's addressing what we in the media seem to have dubbed the school to prison pipeline. This idea that underserved and often minority children enter a system that is already set up to put them at a disadvantage, get them in trouble, and send them down a path that can lead to ending up incarcerated and then to recidivism. And so she's just somebody who, in a much broader sense, comes at issues of race and class and community and how we deal with those conflicts in our communities very directly and powerfully. And it's exciting that she's bringing these different shows all to Palo Alto, to Stanford.
Right. And then we're talking, one of my favorites also is the UN Film Festival is coming to town, and that certainly will talk about community more on a global scale. So what are some of the highlights of that? How many shows are there going to be, do we know?
Oh, I couldn't tell you. They have many, many, many screenings over the course of at least a week. And so the United Nations Association Film Festival has been around over 20 years in the region. Was inspired by this charter that the UN put together in a Declaration of Human Rights. And so every year the theme shifts a little bit. This year the theme is running out of time, which sounds kind of dark. And it is, some of these documentaries that are included in the festival are pretty hard-hitting, but always really varied and thoughtful. And let's see, I've looked into some of the films that are about climate change. Of course, that's a relevant issue for all of us, no matter where we live. And
that's the one that came to my mind,
time-sensitive issue. But then there are much more, things that touch more on what we think of as the arts and the aesthetic aspects of being in community. So there's a piece about 2 circus troupes, one from the Arctic Canadian territories and one from West Africa, who come together to do collaborative projects to help young people who are at risk or acting out learn better values through circus.
That's great.
So there's just a huge range of films that come, and I like that festival because you can do a single ticket and just go in and catch a couple films, or you can get this whole festival pass and dive in and get this incredibly educational, rich, varied experience over the course of about a week. And that's, I don't have the dates right now, but it's in October. UNAFF, UNAFF is the way to find it.
That's great. And are there other events that you think really stand out for you?
Well, continuing with the theme of kind of how we deal with conflict and community and how we digest news, there's a solo show coming to the JCC, to the Jewish Community Center, that is it's called Wrestling Jerusalem, and it's one man's attempt through theater to kind of grapple with Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And I think that's a really clearly important topical subject, but a brave way to do it, to say, instead of trying to represent these many voices with many people the way this is happening in the real world, let's boil it down to one man's journey. And he does represent many characters, I think, in this show, but I bet it will, he finds a way to bring a more intimate and personal angle to a huge global crisis.
Okay.
Really tingly.
So now, if I just want to just see something that is not heavy and I don't want to, is not thought-provoking, I just want to get out and enjoy myself. Tell me a little bit about what else is out there this year.
Well, one of the highlights for me as a former dancer anyway is the image we picked for the cover of our paper this week, Smewin Ballet. They're based in San Francisco, but they kind of have a second home here in Mountain View. So they come to the Mountain View Center for the Performing Arts. I believe it's at the end of this month of September, with a really interesting, varied program. They've got some works by Michael Smewin, who is the founder of that company, but also much newer kind of contemporary ballet. And this is not Swan Lake, so it's not hard-hitting, it's not heavy and topical, but these are beautiful athletes doing what they call contemporary ballet. Right. It's very graceful, but also athletic and kind of gymnastic, incredible work that they do. Other than that, kind of on the opposite end from some of this very heavy stuff, Lisa Lampanelli, the comedian, is coming to Redwood City, and she's called the Queen of Mean. She's on this national tour called the Leaner, Meaner Tour. So she's kind of into this comedy of insult. So if you need kind of comic relief from all of the heavier topical material, Lisa Lampanelli would be one to catch.
And I think also, isn't there a... what about Beyond Wonderland? That's another one that
right.
I've heard so much about. I think it might be out of my age range, but
I don't think you have to show your ID at the door for that one. Beyond Wonderland is kind of I think of it as Burning Man inspired. The organizers might not want to hear me say that, but it's a 2-day electronic music festival. It takes place at the Shoreline Amphitheater in Mountain View. I think it draws attendees from all over the region and probably beyond, so it's kind of psychedelic art, LED light shows, pyrotechnics, and then just a bunch of electronic music artists and DJs from Europe playing on 3 stages, I think, and it goes, I don't know if it goes all through the night, but that sounds like it would be a sound issue, I don't know, but it goes for 2 days straight, so you can kind of have this ecstatic Burning Man-esque experience without having to drive up to Black Rock Desert and rent an RV.
Okay, and I wanted to ask you a little bit about a special project that you've worked really hard on, and that's the Weekend Express. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about that.
So Weekend Express is one of our new products that we've been really excited about here at Embarcadero Media. So not just at Palo Alto Weekly, but across the larger region. So every Thursday afternoon around 4 o'clock, we blast out an email. It goes to anybody who wants it. You can go to Palo Alto Online to sign up. And we're focused really on what's happening that weekend. So recommendations for new restaurants that have opened that you might want to check out, movies that are opening right now that we think are really hot, community events, festivals. This weekend, for example, the highlight event that went out in yesterday's email blast was the Mountain View Art and Wine Festival. So making sure you don't miss fun events that you might not know about unless you get a reminder the day or two before. And it's just a way to stay connected, make sure you have something fun on your calendar for the weekend. We recommend you sign up.
Well, what I really liked about it, too, is that it's very interactive. You can go on and you can click on something and you'll get a whole review, perhaps, of a film, or you will see restaurant review, that type of thing.
Right.
So it's really, it's not just a listing. It's not just like a phone book. You know, it really has a lot of detail that I thought was really good, and the layout was really beautiful, too.
Well, thanks.
Yeah. Sure. So how can people sign up for that? They just go online?
Go to Palo Alto Online, and the easiest way is Palo Alto Online /express/weekend.
Okay.
If you forget all of that, you can go to Palo Alto Online /express, and you look for the Weekend Express box, and you click on that one, and it needs your email address, and that's about it.
Okay. Well, I guess that does it this week, and we hope to see everybody back here again next week. Thank you.